welcome back to my channel Study Sonipat. I am Dr.Ruchi Jausja. Welcome you to all my channel. Today we are going to discuss about sampling methods. We know that statistical research help in drawing several conclusions based on the requirement of the experts, which uses the data collected for a specific purpose. We can collect the data using various sampling methods in statistics. However, the type of sampling method is chosen based on objective of the statistical research. The statistical research is of two forms. In the first form, each domain is studies and the result can be obtained by computing the sum of all units. In the second form, only a unit in the field of survey is taken. It represents the domain. The result of these sampling extend to the domain. This type of study is known as the sample survey. Table of content, definition, types, probability sampling, simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling. Non-probability sampling methods are convenience sampling, consecutive sampling, quota sampling, purposive or judgmental sampling, and snowball sampling. Now we are going to discuss about what is sampling. What are the sampling method or sampling technique? In statistics, the sampling method or sampling technique is the process of studying the population by gathering information and analyze that data. It is the basis of the data where the sample space is enormous. There are several different sampling techniques are available. They can be subdivided into two groups. All these methods of sampling may involve specifically targeting hard or approach to reach groups. Random sampling error formula, population and sampling error. Types of sampling method. In static, there are different sampling techniques available to get relevant result from the population. The two different type of sampling method are probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Sampling method, probability and non-probability. Probability samplings are simple random sampling, cluster sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, and non-probability samplings are convenience, consecutive sampling, quota sampling, purposive or judgmental sampling, and snowball sampling. Now we are going to discuss one by one all sampling methods. What is probability sampling? The probability sampling method utilizes some form of random selection. In this method, all the eligible individuals have a chance of selecting the sample from the whole sample space. This method is more time consuming and expensive than the non-probability sampling method. The benefit of the uses probability sampling is that it guarantees the sample that should be the representative of the population. Probability sampling types. Probability sampling methods are further classified into different types such as simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling, and cluster sampling. Let us discuss the different type of probability sampling. Simple random sampling. In simple random sampling technique, every item in the population has an equal and likely chance of being selected in the sample, since the item selection entirely depends on the chance. This method is known as method of chance selection, as the sample size is large and the item is chosen randomly is known as representative sampling. For example, suppose we want to select a simple random sample of 200 students from a school. Here we can assign a number to every student in the school database from 1 to 500 and use a random number generator to select sample of 200 numbers. Systematic sample. In systematic sampling method, the items are selected from the target population by selecting the random selection point and selecting the other method after a fixed sample intervals. It is calculated by dividing the total population size by the desired population size. For example, suppose the name of 300 students of a school are sorted in the reverse alphabetical order. To select a sample is a systematic sampling method. We have to choose some 15 students by randomly selecting in a starting numbers, say 5. For number 5 onward, we'll select every 15th person from the sorted list. Finally, we can end up with a sample of some student. Now the next is stratified sampling. In a stratified sampling method, the total population is divided into smaller groups to complete the sampling process. The small groups is formed based on the few characterized in the population. After separating the population into smaller groups, the statisticians randomly selected the sample. For example, there are 3 bags A, B and C, each with different balls. Bag A has 50 ball and B has 100 ball and C has 200 ball. We have to choose a sample of balls from each bag proportionally. Suppose 5 balls from bag A, 10 balls from bag B and 20 balls from bag C. Next is cluster sampling. In the cluster sampling method, the cluster or group of people are formed from the population set. The group has similar significantly characterized. Also, they have equal chance of being a part of the sample. This method uses simple random sampling for the cluster of population. For example, an educational institution has 10 branches across the country with almost the number of students. If we want to collect some data regarding facilities and other things, we can't travel to every unit to collect the required data. Hence, we can use random sampling to select 3 or 4 branches as clusters. All these 4 methods we can understood better manner with the help of figure given. Simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling and cluster sampling. What is non-probability sampling? The non-probability sampling method is a technique in which the researcher selects the sample based on subjective judgment rather than the random selection. In this method, not all members of the population have a chance to participate in the study. Non-probability sampling time. The type of non-probability sampling such as convenience sampling, consecutive sampling, quota sampling, judgmental sampling and snowball sampling. First is convenience sampling. In the convenience sampling method, the samples are selected from the population directly because they are conveniently available for the researcher. The samples are easy to select and the researcher did not choose the sample that outline the entire population. For example, in researching customer support service in a particular region, we ask your few customers to complete a survey on the product after the purchase. This is a convenient way to collect data. Still, as we only surveyed customers taking the same product at the same time and sample is not representative of all the customer in that area. Consecutive sampling. Consecutive sampling is similar for convenience sampling with a slight variation. The researcher picks a single person or a group of people for sampling. Then the researcher researches for the period of time to analyze the result and move to another group if needed. Next is quota sampling. In the quota sampling method, the researcher forms a sample that involve the individual to represent the population based on specific traits or qualities. The researcher chooses a sample of subset that being the useful collection of data that generalize the entire population. Purposive or judgmental sampling. In purposive sampling, the sample are selected only based on the researcher's knowledge. As their knowledge is instrumental in creating the sample, there are a chance of obtaining highly accurate answer with a minimum marginal error. It is also known as judgmental sampling or authoritative sampling. Last is snowball sampling. Snowball sampling is also known as chain reference sampling technique. In this method, the sample have traits that are difficult to find. So each identified member of the population is asked to find the other sampling unit. Those sampling units also belong to the same targeted population. So